The night was quiet and cold. Wind howled outside the metal walls of Jake's outpost. He sat alone in his small room, fixing a broken tool under a dim light. His hands were rough, his face tired, and his heart empty. It had been 2 years since he came to this lonely planet. Far from war, far from people, far from pain, Jake used to be a soldier. Now he was just a mechanic. He didn't want to fight anymore, he didn't want to care. He just wanted peace and silence, but silence can be broken. A sudden knock at the door made him freeze. He stared at the metal door, his hand still holding the tool. No one ever came here. No one should be out there. Another knock. Softer this time, then a voice. "Quiet and calm, please," the voice said. "Open the door." Jake stood slowly, his body tense. He reached for the side drawer and pulled out a small blaster. Just in case, he pressed the button to open the door. And there she stood, a tall alien woman, her silver skin shining under the porch light. She wore a long dark cloak, and behind her stood 2 small children. They were like her, alien, strange, beautiful. Their large eyes blinked at him with quiet curiosity. The woman's voice was soft but firm. "I am Sira," she said. "My children need a father." Jake didn't know what to say. His mouth opened but no words came. He looked at the children, then at her. Then back at the children. He had seen aliens before. Fought some, helped others, but never like this. "Never at his door in the middle of the night. Are you hurt?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "No," she said. "But we are not safe, not out here." Jake stepped aside slowly, still unsure. "Come in," he said, "but no trouble, understood?" She nodded once. The children followed her inside without a sound. The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. Jake watched as Sira guided the children to sit on the floor. They looked tired, cold and hungry. He gave them water, then some old food from his supply. They ate silently. Their movements small and polite. Jake sat across the room watching them. He didn't understand why they came to him, why here, why now. After a while, the children curled up under a blanket on the floor and slept. Sira stayed awake, sitting near them like a guardian. She looked at Jake with calm eyes, full of stories. He didn't ask questions, not yet, but she began to speak anyway. "My mate is dead," she said, her voice low. "He was a warrior, a father, a kind soul." Jake stayed silent, listening. "There was a battle. He was wounded. He never returned." "I'm sorry," Jake said quietly. "He told me," she continued, "if anything happened to him, I should find you." Jake blinked, confused. "Me? Why?" Sira pulled a small device from her cloak and placed it on the table. She tapped it, and a blue light blinked. A voice came from it, a male alien voice, warm and rough. "If you're seeing this," the voice said, "then I am gone. My friend, human named Jake, saved my life once. He showed kindness during war. I trust him. Take my family to him. Maybe he can protect them." The message ended, and the light faded. Jake stared at the device. He remembered a mission from years ago, an ambush, a fire, a wounded alien he pulled from the wreckage. He never even knew the man's name. He never thought it mattered now that man was dead, and his family was here at Jake's door. Sira looked at him again. "My children are not safe," she said. "Our people call me a traitor for loving a human. Your people fear us, but you, Jake, you saved him. Will you save us too?" Jake felt something in his chest, a feeling he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't fear or anger. It was the start of something else. Something soft, something dangerous. He looked at the children, sleeping peacefully. He looked at Sira, strong and tired, and he looked at the door. The cold wind still whispered outside, but inside the air had changed. He put down the blaster and said, "You can stay. For now." Sira nodded, her face calm but her eyes shining. "Thank you, Jake," she said. "I will not forget this." The night was no longer quiet, and Jake was no longer alone. The sun had not yet risen, but the stars above the outpost were beginning to fade. Inside the small metal shelter, everything was quiet. The children still slept. Wrapped in blankets on the floor, Jake sat in his chair, watching the flickering light from a heating unit. Across from him sat Sira, the silver-skinned alien widow. Her back was straight, but her eyes looked tired. She had not slept, Jake could tell, and she had no plans to. "You should rest," he said softly. She shook her head. "I am used to long nights," she replied. There were many back home. He studied her face in silence. Her features were sharp but gentle. Her voice had a rhythm like a quiet song. She did not look like a warrior, but she had walked through danger to reach him. After a long pause, Sira spoke again. You want to know why I came here? She said. Jake nodded. Yes, I do. She looked down for a moment, thinking. Then she began to tell her story. We were raised in fear of humans, she said. In our schools, we were taught that humans were violent, selfish, heartless. But I never believed it fully. Then came the war. Her fingers gently touched the sleeping head of her smallest child. My mate Varen was a soldier, she continued. He volunteered to go to the front lines. He believed in peace more than war, but he fought to protect us. Jake listened quietly. Remembering the war himself, he remembered the heat of battle, the screams, the silence after. He had seen many aliens fall. He had seen many humans die too. In war, no one wins, not really. During a mission, Sierra said. He was injured, left behind, bleeding, dying. I was told he had died there, but he survived, because someone saved him. That someone was you. Jake blinked slowly. I didn't know his name, he said. Sierra nodded. He never forgot yours. He spoke of you every night after he returned. He said, a human saved my life and expected nothing in return. That changed his heart, and mine too. She looked at Jake now, her eyes bright in the dim light. He left the military, she said. He married me. Our people called it betrayal. But we were happy. For a time, Jake leaned forward slightly. What happened to him? He asked. Sierra's lips tightened. He tried to stop a secret project, she said. Something dangerous. They silenced him. Jake's heart sank. I'm sorry, he said again. Sierra nodded slowly. I fled with the children, she said. They called me a traitor too. But before he died, Varen gave me this. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a folded piece of cloth. Inside was a tiny chip, warm from her touch. Jake inserted it into his device and a recording played. It was Varen's voice again. My love, it began. If you're hearing this, I am gone. Take our children and find Jake, the human. He once saved me. He has honor in his blood. He will protect you if no one else will. The message ended, and Jake stared at the screen. His name, spoken by a dying alien father, felt heavy. He didn't ask for this, but now it was here. Sierra placed the cloth back in her cloak. Varen believed in you, she said. Jake looked at the children, still peaceful. I'm not a hero, he said softly. I'm not even good. Sierra tilted her head slightly. You let us in, she said. You fed us, you listened. That is more than most outside. Wind blew gently across the empty land. A new day was coming. But with it came more questions, more danger. You said Varen tried to stop something, Jake said. What kind of project? Sierra looked around as if checking the shadows. Then she leaned in close, her voice even lower. It's called the Breeder's Code, she whispered. Jake frowned. What is that? A secret plan by our High Council, she said. They want to create hybrid children, half human, half alien. Children who can survive on both worlds. Children they can control. Jake's jaw tightened. And you think your kids, they're proof, Sierra said. That love can create not just war, but to the Council. Their property, experiments. Varen tried to destroy their data. They killed him for it. Jake stood slowly. Pacing the room, he wasn't ready for this. He didn't want to be part of some galactic mess, but now it had found him. In the shape of 2 children and a widow's quiet voice. They will come for you, Sierra said, soon. Are you ready to protect us? Jake looked at her, at the sleeping children, and then out the window where the sky was turning pale blue. I don't know, he said, but I'm not going to let them take you. Sierra gave a slow nod. For the first time, a small smile touched her lips. You are more like Varen than you know, she said. And in that moment, Jake understood. His quiet life was over. His past had found him, but maybe, just maybe, his future was sleeping on his floor. The morning sun rose slowly over the dusty horizon. Its pale light slipped through the cracks of Jake's outpost. The metal walls glowed faintly gold, and the smell of hot air filled the room. Sierra sat quietly by the heater, her silver skin shining in the early light. Her children still slept, their small bodies curled together under a blanket. Jake poured water into 2 cups and handed one to her. She nodded in thanks, her hands trembling slightly as she held it. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Outside, wind moved across the barren land. It sounded lonely, like a whisper that carried secrets. Finally, Sierra broke the silence. "There is something you must see," she said. She reached into her cloak and brought out the small black device again. Jake stared at it, the same one that had played Varen's voice last night. "This message," she said softly, "is not finished." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "There is another layer," she said, hidden under his main message. "He told me how to unlock it, but I never dared." Jake took the device, turning it in his rough hands. He saw small alien symbols carved on the side. He pressed 2 buttons at once just as Sierra whispered the activation code. The blue light blinked again, brighter this time, and a hologram appeared. Floating above the table, it was Varen, but different this time. His face was serious, his eyes sharp. He looked tired, wounded, but determined. "Jake," the hologram said, "if you are seeing this, it means my family found you. You once saved my life. Now, I ask you to save something greater." Jake froze. His breath caught. The hologram flickered, then continued. "There is a secret project," Varen said, "called the Breeder's Code. They want to make soldiers, not families. They want to use human DNA for war. I tried to stop them, but I failed. The proof, the real data, they hid it on a human satellite. Find it, destroy it, or everything will burn." The hologram showed a map, coordinates flashing across the screen. Jake recognized the sector. It was close, only a few miles beyond the next ridge. A place once used by human miners years ago, now abandoned, or so he thought. Varen's voice softened. "If they find my children, they will take them. They are the key to unlocking the project's success. Protect them. Jake, you are their last hope." The hologram flickered once more, then vanished. Silence filled the room again. Only the quiet hum of the heater remained. Jake leaned back, running a hand over his face. He couldn't believe what he had just seen. This wasn't only about a widow and her children anymore. This was about something huge, something that could start another war. Sierra looked at him carefully. "You understand now," she said. Jake nodded slowly. "Yes," he whispered. "I do." He walked toward the window, staring at the bright desert. He remembered the war, how it started with lies, fear, and control. He remembered all the lives lost because of politics and greed. And now it was starting again, just with a new name. "Do you think they're still looking for you?" Jake asked. Sierra nodded. "They never stopped. They sent hunters, soldiers, even spies. They won't rest until they have my children." Jake turned back to her, his jaw tight. "Then we'll have to move before they find us." Sierra's eyes widened slightly. "You would help us?" Jake gave a small half-smile. "Your husband saved me once too," he said. "He saved me from becoming like them. If I don't help, then his death means nothing." Sierra's shoulders relaxed for the first time. Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment, she looked almost human. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. But Jake wasn't smiling now. He looked at the device again, at the glowing coordinates. Something about it bothered him. He noticed a faint symbol in the corner of the display, an old military mark. One he knew very well. That symbol meant tracking beacon. Someone could be tracing this message. Jake quickly shut off the device. "Were you followed?" he asked sharply. Sierra looked alarmed. "No, I don't think so." Jake's voice grew harder. "This beacon might have been active when you played it. They could already be coming." Fear flashed across her face. She rushed to her children and shook them awake. "Get up," she said softly. "Now." Jake grabbed his gear, loading his blaster and strapping on his old armor. He hadn't worn it in years. It felt heavy, like his past returning. Outside, the wind grew stronger. Dust rose in the air, covering the horizon in the distance. A dark shape moved, fast and silent. It wasn't a storm, it was a ship. Jake's heart pounded. "They found you," he said. Sierra held her children close, the youngest one. A girl whispered, "Mama, they are here." Jake turned to her in shock. "She can sense them?" Sierra nodded. "She was born with that gift. She feels danger before it comes." The rumble outside grew louder. The children clung to Sierra's cloak. Jake opened the hidden hatch under the floor. "This leads to the old tunnels," he said quickly. "Go now." Sierra hesitated. "What about you?" she asked. Jake loaded his weapon and looked at her. "I'll hold them off, buy you time." Sierra shook her head, her eyes full of tears. "Don't," she whispered. "You'll die," Jake smiled faintly. I've already done that once, he said. He pushed her toward the hatch. Go, he said firmly. Protect them. As she climbed down, she looked up one last time. The light from above made her eyes shimmer like silver fire. Jake, she said softly, don't let their sacrifice be for nothing. He nodded, then the door burst open. The air filled with red dust and the sound of engines. Jake took a deep breath and whispered to himself, all right, Varen, let's see if I can save your family too. The tunnels were dark and cold. Metal walls stretched far into the earth, once used by miners, now long forgotten. Sierra walked quickly, holding her two children close. Their footsteps echoed through the silence. The younger child, Luma, clutched her mother's arm, her wide eyes glowing softly in the dark. The older boy, Riel, walked beside her, quiet but alert. Behind them, far above, Jake had stayed behind to fight. The door of the outpost had exploded open, and the enemy had entered. Sierra didn't know if he was alive. She didn't want to think about it, but the children, they already knew, Mama, Luma whispered. He's hurt. Sierra stopped, kneeling beside her daughter. How do you know? She asked gently. Luma pressed her tiny fingers against her temple. I saw it in here, she said. They hit him. But he got away. He's coming. Riel stepped forward, his voice stronger than his age. We have to wait for him, he said. He won't leave us. Sierra looked at both of them. Heart heavy with fear and pride, she had tried to protect them for so long. But now they were protecting her. They were more than just children. They were gifted. They began walking again. Deeper into the tunnel, old lights flickered on the ceiling. Some still working after all these years. Sierra knew they needed a safe place to hide. At least until Jake returned up above, the fight was not over. Jake had led the soldiers away from the hatch. He moved fast through the rocky terrain, using old paths he remembered from his military days. His leg was injured, bleeding, but his grip on his weapon was steady. He knew the tunnels had multiple exits. He just needed to survive long enough to reach one of them. To find them again, meanwhile, back underground, Sierra and the children found a small control room. Old wires and machines sat covered in dust. She locked the door and blocked it with metal bars. Then she let herself rest for a moment. The children sat together in the corner. Whispering softly, Sierra watched them, remembering the day they were born. Twins, but different from the start. Riel had sharp eyes, quiet and thoughtful. Luma had soft hands, warm and full of light. Both of them were born with strange gifts. Gifts even their father didn't fully understand. She walked over to them. Tell me what you see, she said gently. Riel closed his eyes. There's more coming, he whispered. Another ship. In the sky? They're looking for us, but they don't know we're down here. Luma leaned her head against her brother. I see Jake too, she said. He's hurt but moving. He's angry, but not afraid. He's thinking about us. Sierra placed a hand over her heart. It ached with so many feelings, grief, fear, hope, and something new. A quiet bond growing between her and the human man. She had come to him with nothing but a memory and a name. Now she waited for him like someone waiting for the sun. Hours passed slowly. The children slept in turns. Sierra stood by the door, always listening, always watching. Then, just as the silence became too deep to bear, she heard something, a knock, then two more, then silence. It was the signal Jake had taught her. She rushed to the door, unblocking it quickly. There he stood, dusty, bruised, bleeding, but alive. The children ran to him without hesitation. Riel hugged his waist, and Luma clung to his leg. Jake knelt down, putting one arm around each of them. You all right, kiddo? He whispered. They both nodded. Sierra stood behind them. Watching silently, Jake looked up at her. I told you I'd find you, he said, and then he collapsed. Sierra caught him before he hit the floor. She lowered him gently, her hands glowing with soft blue light. Let me help, she said. Jake winced. You heal people now? Sierra smiled slightly. I learned. She touched his wound, and the glow grew stronger. Jake felt warmth spreading through his leg, the pain fading slowly. You're full of surprises, he muttered. Sierra laughed quietly. So are you, after tending to him. They rested. Jake sat with the children, who watched him with curious eyes. They asked questions about Earth, about the war, about why he lived alone. I lost my family, Jake said softly. Long ago. But maybe I've found a new one. Riel tilted his head. You fight like a soldier, he said, but you talk like a father. Jake blinked at the boy. then nodded slowly. Maybe I could be both, he said. Luma touched his arm. You don't have to be alone anymore, she whispered. We can be yours, Jake looked at Sierra. She didn't speak, but the look in her eyes said everything. She wasn't asking for protection now. She was offering something, to a place beside them if he wanted it. But before he could answer, Riel stood suddenly, his eyes wide. They found the other entrance, he said. They're coming. Jake stood quickly, checking his gear. We move now, he said. He looked at the kids. You lead the way. Riel nodded, and for the first time he smiled. Luma reached for Jake's hand and held it tight. Sierra stood beside them, stronger than ever. They were no longer just survivors. They were something more. A broken soldier, a hunted widow, and 2 children with gifts. Together they were becoming a family, and the world wasn't ready for them. The moon hung low over the desert like a pale coin. Its cold light fell across the land, silent and silver. Inside a hidden cave near the old mining ridge, Jake sat awake, his blaster in hand. Sierra and the children were asleep, safe for now. But he couldn't sleep. Not tonight. Not with the memory of what Riel had said. They found the other entrance, the boy had whispered. And now Jake waited, listening for any sound in the dark. His leg still ached from the last fight. The cut was healing thanks to Sierra's touch, but the pain reminded him that he was still human, still breakable. He shifted slightly, his back pressed against the rock wall. Every breath of wind outside made him tighten his grip on the blaster. Then suddenly he heard it, a soft hum, like an engine trying to stay quiet, followed by a crunch of boots on sand. Jake leaned forward, his body tense. He crawled to the edge of the cave opening. Looking out over the rocks below, shadows moved in the moonlight. 3 figures, all armored, all carrying weapons they had found them. He backed away from the entrance and turned to Sierra. She was already awake, eyes open, calm but alert. They're here, he whispered. She nodded, rising without a sound. She gently woke the children, her touch soft but firm. Riel blinked, then stood up quickly. They brought the hunter, he said, his voice shaking. Luma grabbed her mother's hand, her voice small. The one with no face, she said. He smells like fear. Jake's eyes narrowed. Who is he? He asked. Sierra answered quietly. A bounty hunter. Not just any. He's trained to take alien targets. But he also hunts humans who protect them. Jake stood, loading his weapon. Then he's come to the right place, he said. Sierra reached into her bag and pulled out a small round object. What's that? Jake asked. A field disruptor, she said. One use only, creates a barrier for 10 minutes. Enough to run, Jake frowned. We're done running. He looked at the children. They need to stop chasing you, Sierra hesitated. You want to fight them? Jake nodded slowly. I'll draw them away again. You take the kids and move east. To the old comm tower. I'll meet you there. Riel stepped forward. I want to help, he said. Jake put a hand on the boy's shoulder. You already have, he said. But this part is for me. He looked at Sierra, who held his gaze. Something passed between them. Trust. Worry. Something more. You don't have to do this alone, she said. Jake smiled. I've been alone long enough. He turned to leave. But she stepped forward. Her hand gently touched his arm. If you fall, she said quietly, don't fall without knowing. You matter to us now. Jake didn't reply with words, but he gave a short nod, and then he vanished into the night. Outside, Jake moved fast across the rocks. He circled around the hunters coming from the side. The moonlight gave just enough glow for him to see. He climbed up a ledge and from there saw the bounty hunter clearly. The hunter wore a mask, flat, smooth, no eyes, no mouth. Just a blank metal face. It gave Jake chills. The other 2 soldiers scanned the area with heat sensors, but they didn't see him above them. Jake took a deep breath, then jumped. He landed behind one soldier. Grabbing him by the neck and slamming him down, the other turned shouting. But Jake fired, quick and clean. Only the hunter remained. The faceless man turned his head toward Jake. You're not in the file, the hunter said, his voice deep and mechanical. I'm not a target, Jake replied. I'm a problem. They charged at each other. Blades clashing, fists flying, sparks lighting the night. Jake fought with everything he had, but the hunter was fast, unnaturally fast. Jake was knocked to the ground, gasping for air. The hunter raised his blade and then stopped. Something hit him in the back. Hard Sierra, glowing with blue energy, had struck him from behind. She stood tall. her hands pulsing with alien light. "You don't touch him," she said. Voice steady. The hunter turned, ready to fight. But then Luma's voice rang out, high and strong.
"Stop!" she cried. The air shimmered.
And a wave of light burst from her. The hunter froze, paralyzed by the wave. Jake stared in shock. "What was that?" Sierra ran to him, helping him stand. "Our daughter," she said. "She's awakening." The hunter groaned and tried to move. Jake grabbed his blaster and aimed. "Not today," he said, and fired. The body hit the sand with a thud. Silence returned. Except for Jake's heavy breathing, they stood under the moon, surrounded by danger and death, but also something new. Hope Riel ran over, his eyes wide. "You came back," he said to Jake. Jake ruffled the boy's hair. "Of course I did." Sierra looked at Jake. "You were willing to die for us," she said. Jake looked at her. "I'm not done living yet." For a long moment, they just stood there. Then Sierra stepped closer. Her hand found his. "You don't have to sleep alone anymore," she whispered. Jake smiled. "Neither do you." The sky was dark again. Not with night, but with smoke. Ash floated down like snow as Jake stared at the burning remains of the cave they once called safe. He stood still, the heat touching his skin. Sierra stood beside him, her arm wrapped around the children. Behind them the fire grew louder, but the danger wasn't over. "They found us again," Jake said quietly. Sierra's face was calm, but her eyes burned with sorrow. "They will keep coming," she said, "until one of us is gone." The battle from the night before had only been a warning. The real strike came just after dawn. More ships, more soldiers, a full team. Sent not just to capture, but to erase. Jake had fought them. So had Sierra. Even the children had helped. Luma with her light, Riel with his visions. Together they had survived, but just barely. They walked now toward a small abandoned station near the ridge. Jake's old comm outpost from his soldier days. It was broken, dusty, full of rust, but it still stood. And it was the only shelter left inside. Jake dropped his gear on a crate and sat down with a groan. His shoulder was bruised, his arm sore. Sierra knelt beside him, her hands glowing with soft energy. "This might sting," she said. Jake smiled through the pain. "I'm getting used to you saving me." As she worked, the children explored the room. Riel found old tools and began fixing a loose panel. Luma hummed softly, her small fingers drawing circles in the dust. Despite everything, they were still just children. Children who had seen too much. "You're good with them," Jake said quietly. Sierra looked up, her smile gentle. "They are my world," she said. "But they need more than a mother now." Jake met her eyes. "What are you saying?" Sierra placed a hand over his. "I came to your door as a stranger," she said, "but now I see something I never expected. Not just a protector, not just a man who fights when, but someone who could be ours." Jake didn't know what to say. His life had been filled with loss, but these past days, running, fighting, caring, had changed him. He looked at the children, then back at Sierra. "You're not alone anymore," he said softly. "None of you are." Before she could answer, Riel spoke. "Someone's coming," he said. Jake stood quickly, grabbing his weapon. "How do you know?" "I saw it," the boy said. "Not with my eyes, but in my head. They're bringing fire, real fire." Jake moved to the broken window. Far on the horizon, a dark shape moved fast. A warship, lower than usual, scanning the land. "They're going to burn us out," Jake muttered. Sierra stood beside him, her face hard now. "Then we burn back," she said. Jake raised an eyebrow. "You got a plan?" She nodded slowly. "There's a power core under the station," she said. "Old, unstable. If we overload it, it will explode. Big enough to knock out the ship." Jake stared at her. "And big enough to kill us too." "Yes," she said. "Unless we time it perfectly." Jake turned to the kids. "Can your visions help with timing?" Riel nodded, his eyes already half closed. "I'll try." They got to work fast. Jake connected wires. Sierra handled the power coils. Riel sat quietly, counting in his mind. Luma stood near the door, light glowing softly in her palms. She was scared but not frozen. 3 minutes, Riel said suddenly. "That's when it hits the spot." Jake nodded. Wiping sweat from his face, he turned to Sierra. "You ready?" She stepped close. "If this is the end," she said, "then I'm glad it's with you." Jake leaned forward, resting his forehead against hers. "It's not the end," he said. "It's the start of something new." He turned to the children. "You stay behind me no matter what." The warship got closer. Its engines roared, flames licking the sky. Jake pressed the final switch. The core began to hum, loud, fast, dangerous. "Now!" Riel shouted, "Run!" They burst from the back exit, feet pounding on the sand. Jake held Luma in his arms. Sierra pulled Riel close. The ground trembled behind them, and then, boom. The explosion lit the sky like a second sun. Fire rose high, swallowing the station and shaking the earth. The warship above tilted, lost balance, and fell sideways into the ridge. Jake and the others dove behind a dune. Flames passed over them like waves, then silence. Ash fell again. Like gray rain, Jake slowly lifted his head, coughing. "You alive?" he called. "I'm here." Sierra's voice came back. "We're all here." They stood up together. Riel stared at the broken warship in the distance. "We stopped them," he whispered. "For now," Jake said. Sierra turned to Jake. She stepped close. "No more running," she said. Jake nodded. "No more hiding either." They looked at the children. Luma reached up and held both their hands. "We're a family now," she said softly. Jake smiled. "Yeah," he whispered. "We are." The sky was clear for the first time in weeks. There was no smoke, no gunfire, no ships in the sky. Only the sound of warm wind brushing across the sand, and the gentle laughter of two children playing near a half-broken tower. Jake stood on the edge of the rebuilt comm station. He looked out over the ridge, eyes scanning the horizon, but there was nothing out there now. No bounty hunters, no soldiers, no shadows moving in the dust, only peace at last. Behind him, Sierra stepped out, carrying 2 cups of hot liquid. She handed one to Jake and sat beside him on the metal steps. The sun was rising, gold and wide, spreading light across the desert. "Quiet morning," she said. Jake nodded. "I forgot what that felt like." They sipped slowly, the warmth reaching their hands in the distance. Riel was teaching Luma how to fix a signal antenna. They laughed when it fell sideways again. Jake smiled at the sound. "They're healing," he said. Sierra looked at the children and nodded. "So are you," she said gently. Jake chuckled. "Still got scars." "Scars mean we lived," she replied, "not just survived." For a while, they said nothing. Words weren't needed. They had spoken through pain, through fire, through trust. Now, they were just breathing the same air, sharing the same quiet. Jake looked at her. "Do you still feel like running?" he asked. Sierra shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "I feel like building." He raised an eyebrow. "Building what?" Sierra leaned her head on his shoulder. "A home," she said. "A life. A place where they can grow without fear." Jake was quiet for a moment, then placed his hand gently over hers. "Then let's build it together," he said. The old station had changed. It still had cracked walls and wires that sparked sometimes. But now it had warmth, soft blankets, cooked meals, stories whispered at night. Luma had painted a small flower near the door, using the dust and oil mixed with water. She said it made the place feel alive. And Jake, for the first time in years, believed it. That night, they sat together around a fire pit outside. Stars blinked above them, the same stars that had once watched Jake fight and bleed. Now they watched him laugh. Luma crawled into his lap with a tired smile. "Tell us a story, Papa," she said. Jake froze for a second, then smiled and pulled her close. "All right," he said. "But this one's true." He told them about Earth, about trees that touched the sky and oceans that roared like giants. He told them about the stars from space and how small he used to feel. "But when I met you," he said, "I felt big again." Riel sat close to his mother, who held him with quiet pride. "You're not small anymore," Riel said. "You're part of something now." Jake nodded. "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm part of a family." After the children slept, Sierra stayed by the fire. Jake joined her, wrapping a blanket over both of them. The flames danced in their eyes. "You've changed," she said. "So have you," he replied. She turned to him, eyes soft and clear. "You opened your door to a stranger," she said, "and I walked in with 2 children and a broken heart." Jake looked at her, his voice quiet. "And now?" "Now I have more," she said. "A new place, a partner, and children who finally sleep without fear." Jake reached for her hand. "You're not a stranger anymore," he said. "You're home." The wind passed gently, carrying peace with it. There were no alarms, no ships, no fear. Only the warmth of 2 hands joined by choice, not need. Later that week, a small trader ship passed by the ridge. The pilot saw smoke and signs of life and stopped for contact. Jake met him with calm confidence, blaster on his side but not raised. "We're peaceful here," he said. The trader nodded. "I'll let the networks know this area's protected," he said. "No more bounty routes through here, and just like that." The name Jake's Ridge spread quietly among small travelers. A place to rest, a place to repair, a place where a human and an alien widow raised two strange and special children. The trader returned days later with fresh supplies. He dropped off tools, seeds, a solar battery, and a small white box. Jake opened it, curious. Inside was a folded piece of paper and an old earth ring. The paper had only 4 words. For the next chapter, Jake looked at Sierra, standing in the sun with her hair blowing gently. She turned and smiled at him. He walked to her, ring in hand. "You said you wanted to build," he said. "So let's build everything." Sierra's eyes filled with quiet emotion. "Together?" she whispered. Jake nodded. "Every step," he said. And as the sun rose again over the sand and stone, a new beginning truly began. Not in fire, not in war, but in love. And in the hearts of 2 children, a soldier and a widow who had once lost everything, but found each other and finally found home.